David Hilbert was one of the great mathematicians of the early part of the 20th century. He died in the early 40s, and on his gravestone are two phrases: "We must know, we will know." This was his motto. Why do I mention this? Because it's time to talk about the third essay in the genealogy, Nietzsche's Genealogy of Morality. And this is the one where Nietzsche talks about the ascetic ideal and truth. Now, you might think that in Nietzsche's campaign against the ascetic ideal, which you will remember was first put up by the priests. The priests are responsible for bringing asceticism into the world. The priests are responsible for the idea that depriving the body of the good things of life, of striving towards death by damping down the emotions and the reactions and eating the simplest possible food and living as simply as possible and so on. In other words, making of your current life something as close to death as possible. The idea that that is somehow virtuous and somehow can take you out of this world and into another one, right? So this is the idea with asceticism. This is the aspiration of asceticism, that if you live in this kind of death-seeking way in this world, then one way or another you can get a clearer grip, or you can gain some kind of access to another better world. So this might be like in Plato, where by resisting the bodily impulses you get closer to, you make yourself more worthy of and more likely to get access to the world of pure forms. So if you haven't read Plato's Symposium, strongly recommend it. Remember, they're all drinking and talking about love, and Alcibiades tries to seduce Socrates, and Socrates says, no, you start off lusting after individuals, you end up appreciating the form of beauty itself, like the very idea of beauty, and being an idea, it's non-material. So the idea there is, the thought there is that by kind of damping down your carnal passions, you can get better access to the pure forms, which are the more lasting and rewarding objects of devotion. Or this might be more like the kind of Christian model where the reality that your asceticism in this life helps you on towards is the hereafter, some life after death, right? So there's two versions. There's Plato's version. We have a split level reality. There's empirical reality and ideal reality, and you, the currently living person, can by asceticism turn your attention away from empirical reality and up towards ideal reality, the ideas, the forms. Or you can have the temporal development where here you are in this world living this life, but by living a more ascetic kind of priest-like life, or a monkish kind of life, you can make it more likely that you will access a superior reality later in an afterlife, right? Now, if you think of what Nietzsche's doing is a kind of campaign against that sort of thing, you might think that science and scholarship and the objective pursuit of knowledge would be his allies. And they kind of are. But he says something quite interesting here, because he says that scientists and scholars are actually the most recent and noblest votaries of the ascetic ideal. Why? Well, what do scientists and scholars do? We live simple lives. Live the lives of the poor scholar, right? Up in your garret, in your attic room, living on cheap meals, spending your last few pennies on books and writing materials, in order to pursue something called the truth, right? So the picture we have here is kind of parallel between the monk in the monastery who gives up the possibility of a richly sensuous life in order to be a kind of, in the service of God, right? And then you have the scholar or the scientist who similarly gives up the sensuous life, the party time, in order to pursue something called the truth. Now, God is truth, right? So, psychologically and philosophically, they are kind of the same. They're both giving up the possibilities of voluptuous enjoyment in order to pursue something which isn't really present, right? Isn't really part of our empirical reality. That if Kant if Kant feels that he enjoys some philosophical success in his pursuit of the truth, well, he doesn't have something called the truth that he can then present to you, any more than a priest or a monk can go, yeah, I found God. There he is, right? It doesn't work that way. So, something that the first thought that Nietzsche has about truth and the ascetic ideal is that truth seekers are themselves examples of the ascetic ideal, right? So that's the first thought about truth and the ascetic ideal. 2 more to come.